Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make liquid latex wounds for Halloween. You will need a CD case, some toilet roll or just normal tissue, a sponge that you don't mind throwing away after this, some liquid latex, a small plastic container. It doesn't matter if you don't have one, it's not really essential. If you haven't got a small plastic container, then I suggest getting a really cheap paintbrush, maybe from the pound shop, and using it for this. You should never ever use actual brushes with liquid latex because you'll never be able to use them again. An orange stick or just the back of a brush, either one works just as well. And some cotton wool. I'm starting out by pouring some liquid latex into this plastic container. I'm not using too much at first because I can always get more out afterwards. Then I'm dipping my sponge in. And I'm just spreading a really thin layer all over the CD case. Try and make this as thin as possible because it will be sticking to your skin and you don't want to make it very visible. I'm doing this oblong type shape because I'm trying to do some scratches on an arm, but obviously you can do any shape that you want, and you'll see some more that I do a bit later on. I'm just taking one sheet of toilet roll and I'm just using one ply. You only really need the tiniest amount of this. In fact, this is pretty big, so I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. I'm just going to start rolling this up and twisting it back on itself, making it really tight and as thin as possible. I'm then going to stick it straight down onto the liquid latex, almost like a border around the edges, leaving a tiny gap because that's the bit that will be sticking to your skin. I'm then going to take a second piece and repeat the same thing and then join them up to almost form like an eye shape. I'm then going back in with my liquid latex on my sponge and just soaking the tissue completely in the latex just to seal it. I'm going around the edges, making the border a little bit wider because you want that gap to be able to stick it to your skin and also to peel it off the CD case. Once I've got the glue completely covering all the tissue, I'm going to take another thin sheet of toilet roll and start sticking them over the top. I don't want it to look too fake, and this way it will just seem a little bit more seamless. I'm then going in with my orange stick and I'm just using the flat end just to push the tissue down and just make sure that there's no bubbles in it, and just to make it all as even as possible. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go back over it with the liquid latex just to seal it and leave it overnight to dry. You can speed it up by using a hairdryer, but I just wanted to make a few more and I think I'll just leave it overnight. So I repeated all the same steps and ended up making 3 very similar sort of scratches, and they were all a little bit different in size. Then I decided to experiment and make some bullet holes. I've never made these before, but it's the same concept, and I'm just rolling the toilet roll round into a circle and I'm sticking that down onto the latex. I apologise for the terrible lighting. I'm not too sure why it keeps becoming really bright, but I promise that when it dries you'll be able to see it a lot better because it changes colour. Next I'm experimenting with the cotton wool. I don't think I really liked the way that this turned out, but I decided to try and do a bite mark. So I tore off some pieces of the cotton wool and tried to form the shape of some lips. Again, I repeated all the same steps, but instead of the toilet roll I just placed the cotton wool on top of the liquid latex. As you can see, I found it really difficult to work with the sponge on top of the cotton wool, so I ended up using my fingers and then just pouring the liquid latex over the top. Don't worry about getting the glue on your fingers, unless of course you're allergic to latex, in which case I wouldn't recommend this at all, but you can just peel it off as you can see, and it's really easy to get rid of. I went ahead and made a bigger bullet hole. I know it's not very clear in the video, but it is a lot bigger than the other one. And then I went and got some tissue paper and made a smaller circle and just stuck that to the inside of the original circle that I'd done, just to make it a little bit wider and a bit deeper. I then tried to add some texture because I was interested to see what it looked like before I left it to dry overnight. Once the prosthetics are dry, they're really sticky and they change from a milky white colour to a yellowish colour, and because they are really sticky, I used some loose powder and I just dusted it really generously over the top. You don't have to use makeup for this, you can just use talcum powder, and as you can see I made a huge mess everywhere, which is why I recommend also working on a towel. To peel them off the CD case, I just pick out any corners that I think are sticking up, or I just use my nail or the orange stick, and they should be really easy to peel off. Personally, I think I spread the latex a bit too thin, which is why it took me a few attempts just to get it off in one go. The bigger one took a lot longer to remove, and it was a lot more difficult again because the latex was so thin and the cotton wool made it a lot thicker and obviously a bit heavier too. I could have gone over it with more latex to make it a bit thicker, but to be honest I don't think I'm really happy with the shape, so I just thought I'd take it off and show you anyway. The middle bit did actually come out, but that's fine because you don't really need that anyway. And it's done! It's as easy as that. Keep an eye out for my next few videos where I'll be using these latex wounds and showing you how to apply them to the skin. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!